more people will start filtering in. Okay, I think I'm gonna start. So hello Naeem, welcome. Hello all the participants. We're extremely glad to have Naeem Zafar here to talk with us. And to the audience who don't know who Naeem is, let me just provide a brief intro on him. So Naeem Zafar is the founder and CEO of Telesense and the Internet of Things company in Silicon Valley. His last company in the enterprise mobility software, Bitzer Mobile, was acquired by Oracle. His career was shaped in the high-tech industry, having started at 7 companies and advised several other dozen companies. He has distilled his knowledge and personal experiences in his writings and teachings to help guide entrepreneurs all over the world. He travels frequently to lecture on a variety of different topics related to starting businesses and the life of an entrepreneur. Additionally, he is also a faculty member at the University of California, Berkeley, where he teaches entrepreneurship and strategy at the SCET, Sutardja Center of Entrepreneurship and Technology, and the Fung Institute of Engineering Leadership. He also leads the Northeastern University semester in the San Francisco program as a professor and program director. So now I want to hand over the stage to Naeem Zafar, and I want you to talk a little bit about what first got you interested in entrepreneurship and maybe some childhood experiences that made you become a successful entrepreneur.
Well, welcome and good to be with you guys. And so nobody turns on their videos now. Everybody's on. This is no fun. Talk to a black screen.
Well, then we can have our audience, if you guys want to start turning on your videos, I think that would be more interactive.
Just look at each other. So, yeah, well, what got me interested in entrepreneurship? Growing up, we had no understanding there's a word like this exists. So actually, I did not even know how to spell it. Even today, I need spell check. So entrepreneurship is not something which you suddenly get interested in. I was an electrical engineer. When I came out of college, I was working in a big company called Honeywell, designing chips and systems. And but you realize this in a big company, you don't cast a large shadow. I mean, whatever you do is a small part of a very big machinery. So as humans, as engineers, we want to see our work make a difference. We want to change the world, create something new, do something better. And when the 3 other guys approached me about starting a company, and I realized that what we do, we'll be able to see it work, people using it, that's very satisfying. So we jumped on that opportunity to quit that job in a big, large company with security of that company and try something which may or may not work. But if it worked, that the fruits of our labor will be visible to many, many people. So this was the reason, and this is, I did not even know till 10 years later, that's called entrepreneurship. So it was not about entrepreneurship. It was like, let's do something great.
Yeah, so basically just creating a lasting impact on the world is when you becoming an entrepreneur. Yeah. So I also want to talk about, so how did you market Bitzer Mobile, and what was the process of how Oracle acquired it, and what is Bitzer Mobile for our audience to know?
So Bitzer Mobile was the company we started in 2011, about 10 years ago. And it started by, there were 2 guys who've been friends from high school, Ali Ahmed and Amir Heather. And they've been trying to figure out, and one was living in Silicon Valley, one was living in New Jersey. They've been trying to figure out, let's do some company together. You know, everybody starts a company. What can we do? So both of them had never started a company, so they haven't gone through many ideas for many years. Finally, they came about an idea which made sense. And they came to me for some advice that how do we start? Who do we approach? How do we go about that? And what kind of CEO should we have? And after talking to them for some time, I realized that this is an interesting opportunity. And I decided maybe I can join you guys and I could be the CEO. So then 3 of us hammered it out and company was started. So the thing which you learned in entrepreneurship was, what makes a company successful? So there are many, of course, answers. Some people say it's the idea. Some people say it's the team. Some people say it's the market. All those are true. But the most important thing is timing. When timing is right, things just fall into place. So what was happening was in 2010, iPad was introduced. And surprisingly to many people, iPad got accepted in enterprises, in corporation, big companies. People start bringing iPad. I don't know why and why not, but they were with iPad. The problem was these companies are security conscious. They don't want employees to bring their own devices and connect to corporate network. Not every company, but some companies like banks, insurance companies, oil and gas companies, they're very protective of the data. So they had a problem. How do we take this iPad and iPhones and allow people to connect? Security problem. So we figured out a way to solve that problem. By creating a secure container inside your iPad, container has a tunnel talking to the corporate network, but everything, your personal things are outside. Inside the container is the corporate stuff. So this was the big deal. So your second question was, how did Oracle acquire us? So answer to that question is, you have to, it's kind of like getting married. If you want to get married, how do you get her to notice you? Answer is, you start showing up where she hangs out. Maybe you ask for some of her friends. And after like 6 or 7, like, who the hell is this guy? I got to look at him. We did the same technique. So we went to the customers of the large companies and said, we have this solution. They say, yeah, we like the solution. This is a good idea, but you're too small. Who are you guys? So they went back to their main supplier, Oracle, say, Oracle, this is a good product. You are lacking the security feature. Why don't you do something with that company? So Credit Suisse, the bank, this same thing happened. Then we went to a company in the military aerospace space. They had the same problem. They talked to Oracle. So pretty soon Oracle was hearing from all their customers that, what is this company? They have something you need. So they approached us, again, dating analogy, just for casual conversation, chai ke liye aa jaye aap. So it was, just let's see if there's a partnership we can do. And the idea was to see what do they do. Let's get to know them. And we went for a meeting just to present what it is. And like 7 vice presidents came into the room, sat in the back. So we knew that there's something is going on here. But remember, this is not how you make her fall in love with you. What you do is you ask another girl to show up to the party and they make her jealous. So we did that too. We asked a big company, SAP, and SAP started looking into us. Now she was really jealous. They really wanted this to happen. So you have to play this game. I won't bore you with all the details, but this is how it started.
That's awesome. So basically you took an opportunity, and I love how you said you need this opportunity of iPads getting introduced. You were able to piggyback on that and really give the security company, and a lot of people were really interested. And I love the whole process of how Oracle acquired your company. So I've read a lot of places that you've actually made so many different ventures, so many different ideas, so many different companies, almost 7. So I wanted to ask, how do you get these ideas? How do you come up with the companies? Like, what's your process? How do you know that, like, okay, this company might not succeed, but this company has high chances of succeeding, and I really feel like this is something that the public needs to get?
So it's a bunch of things. So first of all, that's why it's so hard to do a company, because sun, moon, and the star all have to line up. So you start by seeing, is there an unmet need? Why is it unmet? Is it technically not possible? Is it legally not possible? Why is it unmet? Once you figure out there's an unmet need, then the question is, who has this problem? How many people have this problem? Only 25 people have this problem, or 25 million people have this problem? Then you have to validate your assumptions by talking to at least 30, 40, 50, maybe 100 potential users. This takes months and weeks. So once you have done that, then you begin to realize how does the customer has a problem? Why haven't they solved it? Where do they look? That gives you clarity. So once you understand the problem, then figure out, okay, how do we solve? Can we solve it? Who do we need in the team? So you put together a team to solve this problem, and you can have people already drooling about it because you have sort of understood what you could do. And then you need to convince investors to give you money so you can build it. So that whole process, but start by identifying an unmet need, making sure there's a big enough market, and who needs you more. You figure those things out, that's your starting point.
Okay, so also you talked about a team when you're making a company. What do you think the importance is of a team, and how do you actually find your team members for your company that you make?
You find them the way you find any situation. If you wanna you wanna make a trip, you find people you know, people you like, and if you're missing, then you look in LinkedIn to find people who could help you. If you cannot find LinkedIn, you hire a recruiter. And so we need a person who knows these skills, can do this. Can you go find it? And you pay them the hefty fee, and they find you one. But it always starts by people you know and people you trust. So I think the one way to look at that is in a team, founding team, it's like a jazz quartet. Everybody is good at their instrument. There's no conductor telling you, everybody just comes and plays an instrument and good music comes out. That's a good team. You don't need 3 trombone players. Just like if you're putting a soccer team together and there are 4 of you and 3 of you are goalies, yeah, let's make a team, 3 goalies. That won't be a good team. So you have to look for complementary skills, but people who have alignment in their vision and ethics and what do they want out of life. So you need alignment in certain things and non-alignment in skills. That makes an interesting team. So you start by people you work with. If you look at my current company, Telesense, my VP of engineering, he went to college with me at Brown University many years ago. My VP of manufacturing, we both were VPs at QuickTurn, company I worked at. My CFO and my CTO, they were my CFO and CTO in Bitzer Mobile. If you look at our director of operation, she was my student at Berkeley. So all these people we have worked together. We came back together again.
So that's awesome. I love how you talked about how you need to have a couple things that are actually shared, like shared beliefs, shared just a couple things that are shared between all of your core team members, but a couple things have to be completely different. Like you give the example of the band. Also want to talk about your company that you're inside right now, Telesense. So can you just briefly explain what Telesense is and what do you want Telesense to accomplish in the future?
So when we sold Bitzer Mobile, I was looking at again, remember I said most important thing is timing. Because there's a famous Chinese saying, all boats rise with the rising tide. So when tide is rising, all boats rise. So IoT, Internet of Things, is going to be huge. It was just getting started. So we said, what could we do with IoT? IoT is basically wireless sensors talking to each other, talking to the cloud, and making sense out of what's going on with machine learning. So we looked at several industries, and we finally focused on agriculture. Why? Because agriculture is huge, it's worldwide, it's COVID-proof, people have to eat. And then inside there, we looked at what in agriculture? And we wanted to some place when the competition is light, so we can win easily, problem is big, and people have a problem. So finally, after a couple of years of searching, we focused on grain, specifically post-harvest grain storage and transport. Once you harvest your grain, corn, wheat, rice, it never improves in quality. It goes downhill. Question is, how? Because you harvest in October, you cannot eat and sell in October. You got to sell in November, December, January, February. How long would it be there? When will it go bad? Should I fumigate it? Should I blend it? Should I aerate it? At what temperature? You have a whole bunch of issues. So Telesense does wireless monitoring of temperature and humidity, and using artificial intelligence and software tells you about your grain, so you can make those decisions intelligently based on data, not based on intuition. So we are serving the grain industry for post-harvest grain storage and grain transport, improving the quality so you don't have bad food, and then improving the profits for the farmers.
Okay, so basically, yeah. So improving the process, all of the profits for the farmers, because you basically use AI and technology, and you actually combine it with the agriculture business. I think that's great. I haven't seen anything like it in the past. So I think that's really a good category to go into because I've never seen technology and agriculture mix. So I also want to focus on a little bit on like all of your past companies. What do you think your greatest companies have been, and what do you think that like you're most proud of when you're creating companies? Which of your companies do you feel like, okay, I really changed the world in this company. I really feel like this company is what I wanted to do, and this company really, I think it's the best company I've made, and I really feel like it accomplished the most out of all of my other ventures.
So a short answer is the best company is always the next one. So I'm thinking that this current company may be the best one. Why?
Yeah.
Because I've made all the mistakes I've made, so I'm hopefully not going to make them second time. So it's slightly better, and you keep know, okay, now I know how to do that. So it's hard to say. I mean, for example, one of the companies we did was Veridicom. You never heard of Veridicom, but if you have an iPhone with your Touch ID, fingerprint sensor, we invented that. So Apple ended up buying that company. We sold to somebody else, and Apple bought from them. But my team, so I feel proud of that we were able to make some difference in Touch ID, silicon fingerprint sensor technology. Another company did was QuickTurn. QuickTurn makes a machine called emulation system, which every single complex electronic chip today uses QuickTurn technology to design verification. So those are interesting contribution, which is lasting went beyond us. So, more than $1 billion of that equipment has been sold. Every complex chip uses that. But it's the next thing. What can we do? So I'm excited about what's possible. These are all stepping stone. Not a big. It's not Elon Musk that we have changed the world. We're slowly making incremental differences.
Yeah. One step at a time. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I know that you're a lecturer at Berkeley and you actually teach entrepreneurship and the life of an entrepreneur. Can you tell me some things that you like to focus over on your course and some major aspects that you like to teach to your students in Berkeley?
Well, I think that process, you see, the question is, some people ask me, are entrepreneurship born or made? So I don't know how you guys think about it, but my point is, my analogy is, are musicians born or made? Some people don't have the knack or the talent. You can take them all the classes, they're not going to be good. That's me, by the way. Some people, they have the talent, but with a little bit of coaching and practice, they can become very good.
Mm-hmm.
So entrepreneurs is the same way. Some people are born entrepreneurs, they have characteristics, but they do need a little bit of a structure and framing so they can then become very good. So what makes the entrepreneurs different than ordinary people? Some people say, oh, they're risk taker. That's not true. They want to avoid risk. Why would you want to take more risk? The difference between entrepreneurs and other people is entrepreneurs are comfortable with living in the fog. Ambiguity doesn't bother them. Some people, are naturally averse to driving into the fog. I don't know what's going to happen. What will I do? How does it work? Entrepreneur says, I don't know how this works, but I'll figure it out. And that attitude to other people look like risk taking. To them, they are comfortable with jugaad. It'll figure something out and make something happen. And that's the main difference with entrepreneurs. In addition to, they can get people to do things for them for free. They have a way to explain and sell their ideas. You need all those skills, and they're they're generally positive people who are always optimistic. When others sees walls, they see doors. So there are certain mindsets. So in Berkeley class, I'm exposing to people these characteristics and asking them, ask yourself, are you an entrepreneur? Do you want this life? It's not a normal life. It's not a career. It's a lifestyle. And second thing we do is give them the tools, like how do you do market research? What question do you ask? Where do you find people? How do you build a financial model so you know how much money to raise? How profitable will you be and when? We teach them how to come up with a business model. What kind of business models are there? Some people sell stuff like CBS, NBC. What is their business model? They sell ads. What is Netflix? It's subscription. What about LinkedIn? It's freemium and services. So every company is exposing the business model and go-to-market strategies. So in one semester in Berkeley, we give them all the skills so they can analyze an opportunity through that lens and decide, does it make sense? Because the final exam is a presentation to venture capitalists, a panel of VCs, and sometimes the companies get funded.
That's awesome. So basically, you teach them necessary skills of an entrepreneur and how to make a successful startup and business. So I've also read a couple places that you're a world citizen and you like to travel the world and lecture different places. So I wanted to ask, what are some of the best, like, what do you enjoy about traveling the world and going to different lectures, interviews, and stuff like that?
Well, the point is, and being a world citizen, that every time you talk to people which don't share your background and people who have different experiences, and if you're open-minded and your ears are open and mouth is shut, you're going to learn new things. So what I call that is rearranging the furniture in my mind. Able to look at same thing, furniture is rearranged, suddenly the room looks different. So if you travel, and I love to travel alone, by the way, not with family and people, because then you're always asking, are you hungry yet? Do you want to lie down? Should we go there? No, none of that. That's all bullshit and gets in the way. You want to be free so you can think, you can engage with local people, you can learn about their culture, their language. You want to go to their homes and see how they live and have lunch with them. That's when you begin to learn and you realize how similar people are in back bush country of Kenya to Botswana to Vietnam. What are the issues? And it helps you see world in a very different light. So that's how you learn. That's what you engage. You enjoy the culture, the food, the people, the customs, all of the above.
So you travel the world. I love that. So what's from some of the best locations you think that you've gone to? Like, what have you most enjoyed going to in the world?
Well, there's a very, every place is interesting
Yeah.
because every place is different and every place is magical in some ways, some more magical than others. When I remember the most interesting country which I enjoy going is Israel, because Israel has people from every part of the world who came together. All the Jews, 7 million of them came to Israel. So you see a very diverse population with different ideas, different cuisine. It's a very small country. You can drive up and down in like a day. It's like 2 hours drive east to west and about 7 hours north to south. So it's a small country. It has 3 bodies of water. So very interesting. But if you're in South Island of New Zealand or in Switzerland, going from Interlaken to Zurich, is so stunning, so beautiful. You literally have to stop the car to admire it. It's too beautiful. But the one place, the best place where I always will go back, and I've been there twice, is Africa. There's no place you would feel you have finally come home than a savanna in Masai Mara or in Serengeti or in some, that is the truly magical place. I wish all of you get to go there someday.
I would love to go to Africa. I think that's awesome. The animals, all the safaris and stuff like that. So you've also published a lot of different articles, books and stuff like that, like over 5 books. So I wanted to ask, out of all those books, what did you most enjoy writing and which did you most enjoy like making? What do you think is the most important book that you wrote?
I don't know. That's not a fair question because they all serve different purpose. They're all good to book. I mean, basically, I wrote the books because I got tired of answering the same question over and over again. So basically, I was able to package what I learned in a book. Said, go read the damn book. If you don't want to read the book, maybe you don't need the answers that badly. So it was a way to package knowledge because a lot of knowledge is out in the world. Problem is, it's not packaged for easy consumption. So as you can see, when I talk, there's not too many unnecessary words coming out of my mouth. It's to the point, it's condensed. That's how my books are. So I don't have time to read a long-winded book. Just tell me quickly what to do. I'm going to do it.
Yeah, basically just don't beat around the bush, go straight to the point.
Yeah.
That's great. I think that's also a very important thing in entrepreneurship because a lot of people try to make their questions, their answers as long as complete as possible. You just go straight to the point. Whatever you want to answer, whatever you want to ask, just go straight to it. So I love that. I also wanted to ask, besides traveling, what are some of your other hobbies? What are your outside interests, and how do you spend your day from a day-to-day basis?
So it's the problem is there are too many interests, and I have to just streamline them because there's not enough time in the day. I love to play golf, but again, it takes time, so you have to limit yourself to once a month or once or twice a month. I'm also have become an amateur historian, so I've been focusing on different countries. I will read maybe 5, 6 books, and then I'll synthesize what I read plus Wikipedia into a 200 slide presentation. So this is a condensed knowledge. I mean, and you can get them online if you go to westernciv.com, Western Civilization. I teach there. So I'm doing a 7 series on the history of Middle East and South Asia. So last night was the history and culture of Syria. I did that, I did Turkey, then Egypt, Syria, Israel. Next Tuesday is Iraq, then Afghanistan, then India and Pakistan. So this kind of a synthesizing few books. I'm reading books about origin of the universe, and I've read several books. I'm synthesizing them into a 200-300 slide, to the point lecture, so you can figure it out. So I'm calling that synthesizing and packaging knowledge in chewable chunks. And that's a fascinating and time-consuming activity. But other than that, it's really talking to interesting people and learning about culture, enjoying the food, enjoying other good things in life.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that you like to really focus on like reading a lot of books, take out the filler, take the straight points, and then condensing all of the information so it's easy for other people to read and take in the knowledge. You must hear this very, very often because you're a lecturer, but what are some advice you give to aspiring entrepreneurs? I know you must get that a lot.
Well, I think the advice is the most important thing in professional life, in my opinion, is having clarity of mind. Clarity of mind is a difficult thing to get because you find somebody using too many words, they don't have clarity of mind. So they overcompensate with speaking unnecessary too many things. I interrupt people all the time and ask them, and you're telling me this because, and you ask them some question like, what's your business model? So, well, we started in 2013 with subscription, and then we had talked to several people. Long-winded answer. I cut to the chase. And sometimes I even use this word, which sounds harsh. I say, answer to my word is an integer. It's not a long sentence and kahani. So this clarity of mind will serve people well in not just entrepreneurs, but in professional life. Because when you have that, you can express and communicate clearly and forcefully, and you'll be heard. People will listen to you. But if you don't have clarity of mind, you will be misunderstood, ignored, sidelined, and you'll be running into your own roadblocks.
Yeah, so I've also heard from you that you keep striving ahead, right? You keep making new ventures, new ideas, and you keep trying to go ahead. So I just wanted to ask, what motivates you from a day-to-day basis, and what really makes you like, okay, I want to make a new company. Let me just work on this right now, and I want to teach my students stuff like that. Just what motivates you to keep running throughout the day?
So that question is not answerable. I have no idea. I mean, I'm in general a positive person. I want to use the talent and resources I have to do something interesting, hopefully beneficial, possibly profitable. So I don't need a lot of motivation from any other source. It's like it's self-generated. What will you do? If you're a horse, you run. What do? You don't sit around under the shade. That's not what horses do.
Yeah, so I also wanted a lot of us young entrepreneurs, what's it called? We have a lot of hard time getting funding from VCs. So I would love it if you could actually answer for the audience and also for me. How do you actually get funding for your companies, and how do you get contact when you first started? How did you get in contact with different VCs?
Well, its short answer is you're selling a story. You're selling a story. You're painting a vision that you're selling. A story is always the same. That we saw a crack in the wall. Because of a unique background, we knew how we can exploit it. Well, others thought there is a crack in the wall. But because of we worked in this field, we did a PhD in this area, we worked in this industry, we knew how to exploit it. So we made a list of assumptions how to do it. We went and talked to a whole bunch of potential users, and they have validated. So we have really figured out what to make. We have figured out what resources we need, how many people, how many dollars. So we want this money from you so we can go from this stage to this stage. That's the story. It's always the same story. Apple sold the same story. Elon Musk, the same story. Steve Jobs sold the same story. You're selling a story. And more credible you are, more you can speak with the voice of customer, more things you have done, more credible the story. So
Yeah.
if you're a high school student, your story will be not so credible because
Hmm.
people don't believe you can do it. So
Yeah.
more you have done, you can do that. So once you have a story, so then in finding investor becomes the easy part. And you find them by approaching them. All VCs have websites, by finding some way to be introduced to them through a mutual professor, a lawyer, another entrepreneur, and you're selling a story. But you have to be able to sell the story.
Yeah.
Right now your story is not believable because you're not gonna quit. You're gonna go to college. You're gonna do other things. So whatever story you have, nice, work on it. We'll talk to you in 10 years.
Yeah. It's basically having connections to VCs and then having a genuine story. And right now, for a lot of high schoolers, just the VCs don't believe that you can do it. So you just need to be more credible, make the since you right now, right? Your story must be extremely like all the VCs must think that you can do any startup that you can because of all the past experiences they've had with successful businesses. So I also wanted to ask, you're being an entrepreneur, what's your favorite aspect of being an entrepreneur, and what do you think that like you're basically, yeah, I just want to make it that simple. What's your favorite aspect of being an entrepreneur?
The short answer is freedom,
Yeah.
because it gives you freedom to what problem to solve. You choose what problem to solve. You choose who you want to work with. You choose you want to take every Friday off or work 3 days a week. It's your choice. You make the rules. So this ability to choose what problem to work on, who to work with, who to sell to, this is freedom. And once you have this ability and confidence, I mean, I jokingly say all the time, you can throw me in Gobi Desert and I won't be worried because I know within 3 months I'll figure out what to sell to the locals. And I know I can survive. You can't kill me. So this freedom that you can't kill me, I can survive in any situation is priceless. And that's to me is what entrepreneurship is all about. It's not about making a lot of money. Some people do it, they can start a company, they can become millionaires. Trust me, it's not that easy.
Yeah.
It's a matter of chance. So you may make some money, but chances are pretty small. You probably do more well off working for a large company, drawing a hefty paycheck. But the freedom is priceless.
Yeah, the freedom of not like you're being the highest in your organization, and technically you're not taking orders from anyone, right? With you're in a corporate job, you're going to have multiple bosses, a lot of levels to go up to the CEO. So I also
But
wanted
hold
to
on, let
ask.
me let me correct you. You're wrong about that. So it's not being on the top of the organization. That's actually the shittiest job of all, because all the problems bubble up to you. Everything you have to do, you have to satisfy multiple egos, multiple people, and you're depending on them. You piss them off, they walk away. Who gets screwed? You.
Yeah.
You don't have bosses. You have all the bosses. Every investor is a boss. Every board of you have one boss in real life. As a CEO of an entrepreneur, you have a board of directors. You have 5 bosses,
Yeah.
and each one of them has big ego, and they think they are the king. So your job, this is not the reason why you do entrepreneurship. They have no boss. It's the opposite. It's not because you're a top organization, everybody listens to you. Nobody listens to you. You have to find a way to
Yeah.
convince them. So that will be incorrect. The real reason is that you pick the problem you want to solve, you pick the people you want to work with, and that is freedom.
Okay, the freedom of having to pick your problem, picking your solution, and picking the company. Okay, so I had it wrong. That's awesome. So yeah, the freedom of having your company and picking your team and stuff like that. Okay, that makes sense. Also wanted to ask a little bit more about your education because we might have skipped a little bit over that. Where did you go to college, and can you tell the audience about what happened during your college and what did you really enjoy about going to college and your education?
Right. So I grew up in Pakistan, and so I went to the not a fancy school, the local schools.
Mm-hmm.
Then I started the engineering university, but after 1 year of engineering university, I got a scholarship to go to Turkey. So I did my freshman and sophomore years in Middle East Technical University, Ankara, Turkey. This was a university set up by MIT's help in 1956 with the same standard as MIT. It was a very tough university. And I went there because they had a history of taking 2 top students to MIT every year. So I thought this may be my way because I wanted to be an engineer. We knew MIT was the best school in the world to be an engineer. So this was the game plan. So I showed up to Turkey. Unfortunately, there were 3 other kids with the same game plan.
Mm-hmm.
And only 2 of us were going to go there. So we competed like hell for the first 2 years. all competing on SATs and GPAs. We all had the similar GPAs, similar SATs, and 2 got into MIT, and I was not one of them. So I went to my backup school, which was Brown University. And all 4 of us are still friends, even today. We have maintained very good friendship. All 4 have done well. So I went to my backup school, but that turned out to be a good choice because Brown was one of the top engineering schools. It's the Ivy League school. It's the second oldest engineering school in the country, and it served me well. And then I did my graduate school in the University of Minnesota. I got into Stanford, but they won't give me any money, so I went to Minnesota, who gave me a full scholarship, and I was able to work at Honeywell and do graduate work there.
Okay. I also wanted to finish off this meeting a little bit about talking about how you handle adversity and doubt. How do you handle doubt when you create a project, when you create a company? And what do you how do you handle doubt, and how do you know that, okay, this has a risk of not succeeding and might fail? Just how do you handle that whole aspect of entrepreneurship?
So that to entrepreneurs, this come naturally. I mean, risky. If it doesn't succeed, then we'll figure something out and do something else. It's called pivoting.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the big deal? It's like you're going on vacation and the road was blocked. What do? The whole vacation is ruined. No, you take a detour and you go to something else. Not a big deal. So that's the attitude entrepreneurs have. So, you just think about what other ways I can navigate around the obstacle. Obstacle is just a challenge which you will overcome. So in my mind is programmed that way. I don't get depressed. I don't get sad. If I get sad, depressed, I go to sleep. Next morning, I'm fine again. Yay, let's go.
So you talk about obstacles, and have you had any major failures? And if you have, what have you learned from them?
There are all kinds of major failures. The list is too long. I've been fired as a CEO. I've been my funding has dropped at the last minute when we just thought we were going to sign the paperwork. Investors have walked away. The key customers have quit. People have quit. The list is long. But to me, those are all minor bumps in the long journey of entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship about learning, about solving problems. If that problem didn't work out, we'll solve some other problems. So this is not, to me, this is not a failure. This is just a detour. Yeah. And if this didn't work out, I'll go this way.
Yeah, just that optimism is great for all entrepreneurs to succeed. Now, we have a lot of time left in our meeting, but I've had a lot of questions been asked to me. So I was wondering if I could just open it up to the audience, and if the audience had any questions, you guys could just write in the chat, unmute, or raise your hand, and that'd be great. And I'm pretty sure that Mr. Naeem would be happy to answer any questions.
I would even prefer if you guys turn on your cameras and ask me directly. I mean,
that'd be awesome.
Deal? Why do you guys turn off your camera? What are you afraid of?
Let's have everyone start turning on their cameras. I think that'll be awesome.
I never understand that, but you're not going to look as good as you think you look, or what? What's the objection?
There you go. We got one person. Let's keep going.
Awesome. I think on the chat, someone asked, is there a framework to judge if the timing is right?
And answer is, it's very hard to judge if the timing is right, because you may think timing is right. So what is timing is right? That you need to ask the question, 2 questions actually, for any time you want to think about a startup. Why us and why now? What changed? Why now? For example, Uber will not be possible unless somehow there was a device which included a browser, a payment system, a GPS device, and a screen. So smartphone was that enabler. When smartphone came about, suddenly things like Uber were possible, which were not possible before. When cloud computing became reality, suddenly now you can have things like Gmail, and you can access that from any place. It was not possible before. So you need to look for these trends. These trends happen when something becomes possible which was not possible until then. Deregulation was another one. You guys don't remember this, but there was a time in 1980s when there was only one company, the phone company. You only went to them to buy the phone. When that was broken as a monopoly, this was AT&T back in the 80s, hundreds of companies were sprouted because it was legally not possible to have a phone company. So these are all great timing. You have to read, you have to observe, you have to understand, but it's hard to predict timing. Many times you think the time has come, and it's wrong. People have been talking about artificial intelligence since 1950s, but it was not really valuable and useful until about 10 years ago. Finally, enough compute power is available that timing seems to make sense, and now things are taking off in AI or natural language processing like Siri. So you have to observe, you have to learn, you have to connect the dot, and you're still wrong half the time.
Awesome. I had one question. First of all, thank you so much for coming. This was an awesome talk. So you said that you travel and you started you like to condense that knowledge and its history with that Western civilization, which by the way, lectures are awesome. So I wanted to ask a question. So you've been doing research in the Middle East and you've been reading a lot about the Middle East. What is the difference between starting a startup or starting just like a business in the Middle East than it's starting a business in maybe like Silicon Valley?
So there's 3 or 4 differences. One difference is people in Silicon Valley think big. They think the world is the market. They don't think California, they think the world. But in Middle East and other countries, every country, they think local. What could we sell in Denmark? What would be Danish people need? We don't think like that. We think we own the world, we run the world. So we thinking big is a big part of it. Second part is that you have an ecosystem. Because the investors, who are the investors? They're the people who are entrepreneurs yesterday. They understand the method. So in one party on a Saturday night, you can find all the people necessary to start a business. The engineers, the lawyers, the marketers, the investors, they're all here. They're all connected. So this is so much easier while you're sitting in Sudan or you're sitting in Lebanon. You may have 2 out of the 5 people available, but what are the other 3? So by the time you get to all 3, it's like, yeah, okay, they're too late and you missed the boat. So it's the critical mass. It's that, then third thing is about culture. The culture in Silicon Valley is to be open, to connect. Culture in Middle East and many other parts of the world is not that. People are vague. You ask somebody in other countries, hey, what do you do? First of all, this question will be offensive to most other people. What do you do is a polite question in Silicon Valley. You ask the question, what do you do in London? And they say, like, who are you? You ask this question in Moscow, what do you do? They say, who sent you? People take this offense to this question. But here, what do you do is a normal, hello, politely question. When you ask questions, how do people answer? In other countries, in Middle East, whatever, they will say, oh, I'm in technology. Me too. Okay, what kind of technology? Software. What kind of software? Then they'll hum and ha and say web technology. By that time you're kind of bored. So you say, yeah, okay, good luck. Enjoy it. But in Silicon Valley, you ask somebody, what do you do? They'll tell you we're using IoT and machine learning for post-harvest grain storage. You have given enough information in a sentence, and other people say, my farmer, my brother is a farmer. He was looking about that. Do you want to talk to him? And pretty soon you're making connection. This has actually happened to me several times. I'm giving a lecture like that. One of my students said, my wife works for Chevron. They were looking for a IT solution for iPad. Do you want to talk to her? Answer is yeah. So this openness invites collaboration. This is unique to Silicon Valley. It doesn't happen in other parts of the world. So we can go on, but let me leave you with those 3 different elements, how people approach it differently, and why is it easier to start things here than any other place in the world.
Awesome. Thank you. And also I had a second question. You were talking a little bit about the network effect in Silicon Valley. And then, like there's people have been trying to replicate the Silicon Valley web. So they're saying, why does like having Silicon Valley in California, why can't it be in, I've heard stories about people trying to make this Silicon Valley in like South America. But I think a big aspect you were talking about Silicon Valley was this network effect. So do you think that network effect is replicable in other places in the world?
So I will say it's more than network effect. I put it into five elements. Let's analyze the 5 elements. So number 1 is this place has a critical mass of great universities. The world class, like UC Berkeley is the #1 public number one rated public university in the world for the last 19 years. Stanford, San Jose State, UCSF. So all this top university, one place, generate a lot of talent. Number two is the weather. There's no place in the world you can show me has a better weather than Silicon Valley. So a lot of people are attracted that they come here. Then number three is the way we approach sharing rewards. Everybody here gets stock options. This is not normal in other parts of the world. So when you have this employee stock option, you have to own some part of the company, you have an employee, not an employee mindset, you have an owner's mindset. So people end up working harder, longer than anybody else. Number four, the rules are set up about protecting intellectual property, not stealing other people's IP and ideas. So people are more comfortable sharing. And number five, how we deal with failure. In other countries, if you started a company and failed, you will have a black scarlet letter around you. People don't want to hire you. In this thing, this is a badge of honor.
Yeah.
Just because a company failed, it means actually you're more valuable to the next employer because you have learned something. Somebody else has paid the tuition for your learning, so I don't have to. So these five things define culture of Silicon Valley.
Awesome.
Culture takes decades to build. Singapore has tried billions of dollars trying to make a Silicon Valley, so has Japan, have failed. Culture fundamentally negates everything I just talked about. Because in Japan, a good person is who blends in with everybody, who doesn't stand out, doesn't cause waves, which is exactly the opposite. So there are reasons like that when this place is unique and will be unique for many decades to come.
Yeah, but I was also thinking, like, you're talking a little bit about Japan. Would you also attribute that the fact that they weren't able to create Silicon Valley because, you know, they're like have like a singular mindset. Like when you think about like Japanese culture, if you said like you said, there's like this social norm that if you fail, you have that black scarlet letter. Oh, you failed. Like you're like socially denounced. But in Silicon Valley, there's no like one set culture because everyone's immigrants. They're all over the world. So like the culture is really set from like the early on like start of Silicon Valley. So would you say the reason why Japan can't really be Silicon Valley is because they're not really open as a culture, or is it for some other reason?
No, it was a bunch of reasons. Open as a culture is certainly one of the reasons, but the second reason is that's why Japanese are excellent in manufacturing because it's about following the rules. Nobody wants on your final assembly line somebody can say, you know, let me try changing it like this, see what happens. Let me explain. No, you got to do exactly this way every time.
Yeah.
Japanese culture honors that, and that's what they're very good at manufacturing. But are they good at writing great software and amazing thing? No, because you have to be experimental. You have to break the laws, break the rules, do things differently. And 70% of the time it won't work. It'll be wrong. But 30% time it may work. That mindset is not what culture appreciates, and they drag forces against it.
Yeah. And I thank you so much for like putting like that Japanese metaphor for that, because I've been personally kind of interested in Japan because recently like I read a book called Shoe Dog, which Shoe Dog, which is the memoir from the Nike CEO, and he talks a little bit about, you know, how there's specific rules for like how Japan, you know, there's like the certain book like how you talk to each business leader, the way you communicate. And I think the reason why Silicon Valley is way better, unique in the sense from other places, is that it doesn't have one set rule, right? Like there's no set rule to communicating to a VC. There's no set rule for starting a startup. However, in Japan, you know, there's like, oh, you have to do this, this, this. So yeah, I think that's definitely one reason why Silicon Valley is unique.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions? I think.
Hey, Professor, thanks a lot for, making an amazing start for the day, and whoever who arranged this call, amazing stuff. My question is more about the risk-taking ability and the mindset that one requires for, jumping into entrepreneurship. What kind of mindset in terms specifically about the risk-taking ability? Should it be all in or partially in, try it out, back it off, go forward, or all in or don't go in?
Well, if you have any shot at making a difference, because to make a difference, you have to break some existing rules. So you have to go in with every fiber of your body. Otherwise, you're giving a half-hearted attempt, and your chances are lower to succeed. Remember, the large companies have set up the rules so they can win. If you play by their rules, you probably will never win because they have a dominant position. So you have to be able to break the rules. Airbnb was not started by a hotel guy. Uber was not started by a taxi company. Somebody else came in and broke the rules. And if the value was there, they succeeded. So point is, you have to be able to break the rules. So you have to go all in to be able to do that, because it's not going to be easy. If you try half-hearted, the risk is that you may not be able to succeed, but then if you're an entrepreneur, you'll figure out some way to survive at the end of the day. What really does it matter? What are you risking? So it's a mindset.
Thank you.
Awesome. And also, I'm putting right now in the chat, talking about Airbnb. I think their story is really unique. So if I'm sending this link that you can watch for this YouTube video. It's a really awesome video to hear about how Brian Chesky really started Airbnb. So I definitely recommend everyone to watch that.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So, sir, you said like high school students will have lack of credibility, so they'll have trouble in getting VC funding. So, is there any way that a student can assess like if he can run a business by just bootstrapping, or if he will need VC funding or not?
No, you should. Only 2% of the companies get VC funding. So let's start with that statistic, 2%. And B, not every company needs the VC funding. If you're starting a pizza store or pan wali dukan, you don't need the VC funding, because VC only funds things which are highly scalable and they can see their money multiplying 5 to 10 times in the next 3 to 7 years. So they have to be able to see that. So most things are not necessarily venture funded. If you can, but there are two types of businesses. One kind of business, you're slowly growing from your profit, like a barber shop, pizza store. You have some initial investment, from your profit, you add more things. Some companies, you are in a race. And if you don't win the race, somebody else is going to go like this. Somebody else will take over. Then you trade off control with external money. And that's what VCs are looking for, things which can really just take off like that. So if you were doing Facebook, if you were not number one, there are many other social networks, one of them would have succeeded. You were in a race. You had to be. Uber is still in a race against many companies, Kareem and Lyft. So you have to then throw money at it so you can grow and become the only name. Remember, in B2C space, consumer space, consumer can only remember one name. We cannot remember a second name. If you ask me after eBay, what's the second company which is an online auction place? I have no idea. And frankly, don't care. If you ask me what's the second company after LinkedIn as a business network, I have no idea and I don't care. So you have to become the only name people can remember. That's what Amazon did, what they did, to become the only name you can remember. Facebook, same thing. Uber, same thing. So this is the point, but B2B space is different. B2B space requires to have multiple options, multiple companies. If you're the only company, people won't buy from you. Intel had to give the recipe to AMD so they can also make the microprocessors. We have two suppliers and vice versa. So this is called second sourcing and all that. Point is that they have to understand the dynamics of the market you're going after, because different rules apply.
Thank you.
If we have any other questions, then you can just write in the chat. And if there is not any other questions, then we can start closing off the meeting.
So before we close out the meeting, just give me a sense, who were our audience and why were they dragged into listening to me?
For sure. So our audience consists of high school students and college students, as well as a couple of adults. And they're all participants of the Hack Venture 2020 hackathon. So as part of this hackathon, they basically have to pitch an idea, and it's basically an entrepreneurship hackathon where they have to make a company and develop a project and then pitch it to a panel of judges. And at the end of that, if the best projects in different categories win prizes. So basically, all of these participants, they just come to a series of different webinars. For example, last 3 days, we've also had a lot of other speakers, and all of these speakers, all of these registrants like to go to because they can learn they can learn about the life of an entrepreneur. They can learn about science, technology, AI, and basically they learn new aspects from every single individual. So basically, we just put the Zoom link in there, tell them that if you want to join, we would love to have all of you join, and you can learn a lot, and you can even ask questions to the speakers. So it's all up to them, and these people like to show up just to, learn a little bit about you and about your beliefs and stuff like that.
All right.
Yeah.
And any other speakers you had which will be you enjoyed listening to in the past few days?
Well, sure. So
yeah.
personally, sorry, you can answer after me. Personally, I think that yesterday's speakers were really good. We had Ari Nazem, who is the class president at Stanford. He also made when he was in high school, he made a company called Swap, and he got a lot of VC funding for that. Also, we also had DHH. He was the one creator of Ruby on Rails. Those two for me were some of the best speakers, including you, obviously, because we already learned a lot from you. And so for me personally, I think that those two speakers and you gave a lot of things to offer, and I learned a lot from those speakers.